Hi, this is State Senator Tom George. Welcome to my program, Current Events. Today I have with me Jim Harding. Jim is an instructor at Michigan State, where he is a herpetologist, right, Jim?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Welcome to my program.
Well, you're welcome. I'm very happy to be here.
Tell me a little bit about herpetology and how one becomes a herpetologist.
Yeah, herpetology is sort of what every 10-year-old kid wants to be for a few weeks anyway. But I just sort of never lost it, lost the interest. But it's the study of, officially it's the study of amphibians and reptiles, which is actually, in modern times, we recognize that as a bit incongruous because reptiles are not more closely related to frogs and salamanders than they are other animals. In fact, a reptile is technically closer to mammals and birds than it is to an amphibian. But if you go way back to the early history of science, back in the 1700s and 1800s, people didn't discriminate between amphibians and reptiles. It was just anything that crawled on the ground, didn't have fur or feathers, was considered a reptile. But it includes frogs, salamanders, which are amphibians. It includes turtles, snakes, lizards, crocodiles, and alligators, which are reptiles. And when you're a herpetologist, you can study, you sort of pick your niche there. But I study turtles, which is my primary interest, although I, am interested in snakes and frogs too. But the turtles really fascinated me, I think, because they were sort of, when I was growing up, they were kind of the underdogs. I felt they were underappreciated, and the more I studied them, the more I found them very fascinating. So here I am, mainly known as the turtle guy from MSU.
How long have you been at Michigan State for?
Since I think we came back in 1988. I was a student at Michigan State, graduated. My wife and I moved away from the area for a while, and then we came back, and we both found positions with MSU in I think 1988, 89, that period right in there.
And you teach herpetology as well as you work at the museum.
Right, I work at the museum as a specialist, and also I teach the herpetology class called Biology of Amphibians and Reptiles in the fall semester. So I usually get 50 to 60 students in that class. It's a lot of fun.
Is Michigan, because of its unusual geographic features, a particularly good place to be a herpetologist, or do we have a special niche in the world of amphibians and reptiles because of the Great Lakes?
I think so. Michigan is kind of a crossroads where, at least in lower Michigan, especially like the Kalamazoo area, you get elements of the fauna coming from the west, from the south, and moving in from the east. And so southern Michigan in particular is a very interesting place. We have, obviously, if you go down to Georgia or Florida or Costa Rica or something, you'll find a lot more species of amphibians and reptiles than we have here. But we do have some very interesting animals. And, I don't regret being here, being a herpetologist in Michigan. My friends down south say, "Oh, wouldn't you like to come down south?" And maybe someday, but today I'm quite happy to work in Michigan. We have 10 species of turtles. We have 18 species of snakes. Only 2 species of lizards, but it's still a challenge keeping up with those.
You've got some examples of our 10 species of turtles right here.
I do. Well, because a lot of my research is done on the wood turtle, which is a declining, rare species found mainly in the northern part of the state. I have a model here of a wood turtle, an adult wood turtle, and this is a shell of a male wood turtle. That was probably, from the evidence when we picked this up, it looks like it was probably killed by a raccoon. It didn't have other damage on it, it just had damage to the soft tissue. And so that's a wood turtle. This is a shell of a painted turtle, which is the common most common species that people are familiar with.
And our state reptile.
Exactly, yes. You know, it's a good choice for state reptile if you want to pick a symbol that's familiar to people. You know, some people said, well, why didn't you fight for the wood turtle as the state reptile? And well, it might have made a good state reptile, but it is a rare and species that's found only in the north, whereas the painted turtle is found statewide. And this is the little shiny black turtle that people see, you know, basking on logs as they, you know, fish in a lake or, you know, canoe, or sometimes, unfortunately, they see them crossing a road.
You've got, these are painted turtles here,
yeah,
aren't they?
I don't know if we can get the camera on that, whether it's, we can do that, but those are basking painted turtles.
There's a little red on their shell.
Yeah, they have little red markings along the edge of the shell, and they have yellow stripes on the head. And they're, you know, pretty animals, very pretty, and but they're the common one that people will see you know, in southern Michigan.
Why is the wood turtle declining?
I guess the simplest answer is for the same reason that a lot of our more specialized wildlife species are declining. The wood turtle is a species of our northern Michigan rivers and the woodland edges along them. They tend to, they hibernate over winter in the river. They often look for their mates in the spring along the edge of the river. But then in the summertime, they move up into the woodlands and meadows looking for berries and mushrooms and things to eat. But they are affected by whatever affects the river itself. Sadly, the wood turtle got a reputation as being a good pet. And even though they are protected by state law now, it is illegal to pick one up and make a pet out of it. They probably are still picked up by those ignorant of the law. And in the past, they were collected in large quantities for that purpose, sometimes commercially. And so, you know, their numbers declined. And the other thing that's happening is that a lot of your listeners will know how common raccoons are now. And back when I first began my research on wood turtles back in 1969, raccoons were actually fairly scarce, especially in the northern part of the state, and they've gotten increasingly abundant. And I mean, that's fine for the raccoons, but unfortunately raccoons love to eat small animals and their eggs, and raccoons are very good foragers. They find turtle nests, turtle eggs. They know when the turtles are nesting. They go to these sandy places where the turtles are nesting and they dig up their eggs. Also, you know, they're finding duck nests and, you know, baby ducklings and things like that. So the raccoon is very abundant now. So I like to say we're kind of burning the wood turtle's candle on both ends. The adults have a hard time along the rivers with so much traffic from, you know, fishermen and canoeists and whatnot, and you know, occasionally picking up the adult animal, and then they can't reproduce to replace these losses because the raccoons are eating a very large percentage of their eggs. So they're sort of declining. In fact, this is one of the few species that I would say probably not direct habitat loss itself is the problem, but just the loss of the animals themselves. Whereas with most declining wildlife, I think we can point to habitat loss as the major problem. But because our river floodplains are fairly well protected, you know, you can't drain a river, and you can't you know, build too much in the floodplain of a river. So the wood turtle's habitat is still there, but the wood turtles are disappearing.